Dear Diary, this is a very sad one, very sad story, but I have over 15,000 stories almost identical to this one. Oh, since I hate my speaking voice, I think I'm going to try and talk in a British accent instead. So, so let's try and talk in a British accent so my voice isn't quite as obnoxious and grating. This is a sad, tragic story. A shocking, shocking tale of deception and betrayal. One day I was looking for musicians. I live in New York City, which is the world capital of mediocrity, and it's not very easy to find musicians who are not typical robots. And I was looking in the listings of a local paper one day, and it was all the same morons, same uncreative morons, all uncreative people, all robots, all zombies. And then one ad caught my eye. It was a metalhead who was, like many metalheads, got a little tired of the typical metal and was trying to branch out. He mentioned Mr. Bungle and a few other acts like that. And even though I think Mr. Bungle were overrated, unbelievably overrated, since I know a lot more about music than most metalheads, I was not very impressed by Mr. Bungle. But I could tell that this was a teenage lad musician who was eager to explore new adventures. And so I contacted him, and I thought, well, I don't want to work with this kid, but I could possibly give him some insight, tell him to go check out maybe some Emerson, Lake and Palmer, check out some King Crimson, get him started on his puberty, his musical puberty. I think he was 18 at the time, maybe 17. And his name was Johnny O'Reilly, and he lived in Brooklyn, and I lived in the East Village of Manhattan. And Johnny was very provincial. He rarely had strayed from his neighborhood in Brooklyn down by Coney Island. His life was very small. He would go to school, then he would go to work, his dead-end job working at a factory stacking pallets. And I felt sympathy for him because I had been a teenager in Massachusetts with nowhere to go. Dead-end suburbs, didn't know where to go, didn't know there was a way out. There was no one there to help me. I had to find this shit out myself. And I wish I had learned 10 years earlier. I would have run away from home when I was 14 and gotten the fuck out of the suburbs. As it was, I didn't leave the suburbs till I was 21. What a disaster. So I have sympathy for young people who are lost or do not have direction. And so I started hanging out with him, trying to drag him to some cool shows or whatever. And I met his sister, Missy O'Reilly, who was a 16-year-old who appeared to have a giant crush on me because I had been on the cover of some newspapers, and females are trained to like anyone, no matter what, if they're on the cover of newspapers or if they have money. I didn't have money, but I had fame. And Johnny would tell me that she was excited to know somebody was on the cover of a newspaper. Anyhow, I found out both of them were fans of alternative comedy, like Janeane Garofalo and David Cross and Mr. Show and things like that. And a new group had moved to New York City from Chicago or wherever called the Upright Citizens Brigade. They were four very, very smart comedian actors / whatevers. And they were really quite brilliant. And here in Manhattan, people think you're going to get the cream of the crop. No, you're going to get the cream of the crap. Manhattan is the world capital of mediocrity. When I got here, I was stunned by how uncreative, unintelligent, lazy, intellectually lazy everyone was. Musicians, photographers, artists, fashion designers, architects, political scientists, everyone. Just moron upon moron. One of the greatest disappointments of my life was moving to the world capital and finding out, shit, there's not even smart people here. So depressing. And just to show you how bad it was, I won my first award for best posters in New York 4 months after arriving here. That should tell you something. Without even trying. I was living in a bush near NYU at the time, because I'd gotten here with $300 and didn't know one single person. And I had to spend $100 to put my stuff in storage, My friends just dropped me off on a sidewalk in Harlem, and overnight I had to sleep outdoors. It started to rain. A bunch of little black kids were throwing things at me, saying, "Hey, mister, that's my bike." And I'd have to say, "Oh, no, it isn't your fucking bike." My life has been dramatic. It's never been anything but dramatic. I've been praying my whole life for just an ordinary life. Even when I lived in the suburbs were ordinary, but my life was never once ordinary. And that's not good. I would much rather be a manager at a McDonald's and come home from work every day and watch TV or watch movies. I would take that over my life any day. My life has been all drama. Like, if you stacked 20,000 Anne Franks together, you'd have a hint of what my life is like. Well, that's not fair. She had a lot of boredom in her life. In the attic most of the time. It was very uneventful. So that's a bad analogy. Let's say if you stacked 50,000 Pompeiis, you might have a hint of what my life has been like. It's been 90% god fucking awful. But we'll talk about that some other time. In another diary entry, as I try to get this shit out so I can take my life with a little bit of peace of mind. So where was I, boys and girls? Oh yeah, so that's how amazing I am, and that's how mediocre New York City is. I won my first award in New York City 4 months after arriving here. I was interning at the knitting factory. I couldn't tell anyone I was homeless because when you told people you were homeless, they weren't like, "Oh, that's terrible, let me help you out." If you told people you were homeless, they said, "Oh, you must be a crackhead and junkie with AIDS. Why else would you be homeless?" Oof. Stupid fucking assholes. Oh, make sure I tell you that story sometime. What the Salvation Army did to me. All kinds of fascinating tidbits about my horrible life. I've probably had I don't say probably. I would dare you to try and invent a life with no limits at all to your story worse than mine. I bet you can't do it because the breadth and depth of my misery and my suffering and pain and bad luck is unfathomable. I could tell you hundreds of thousands of stories that you couldn't have invented if you sat down to try and invent them. Some of them are mundane. Some of them are outrageous. The story I'm about to tell you is outrageous. And you and probably everyone you know doesn't have a story as bad as the story I'm about to tell you. And this isn't even in my top 50,000 bad stories. But this is a stunning story, and a story that really pretty much encapsulates my life in a nutshell. So, ladies and germs, I won Best Posters in New York, even more miraculously, and that was accidental. But I won the award without trying. I was living in a bush near NYU at the time for 4 months, summer of 1990. And I was 21, and, pardon me, I'm distracted. And, I had some serious competition that year. There was a few, I won't go into the details, I guess. It's pretty interesting, but that's too much of a digression. Pardon me when I belch. Ooh, I couldn't get it up. Okay, so the Upright Citizens Brigade had arrived in New York City, and since I went to a lot of alternative comedy shows, I saw them, and I started going to their own shows. And they were a little green at first. They were smarter than other people, but they were still not up to speed. Over the next year, 2 years, they became fucking brilliant. And so every week I would go see them, and it was exciting to see. It was like an oasis in a sea of morons, in a sea of stupidity. I would go every week to see the Upright Citizens Brigade, and it was exciting to see people who were smart and creative. Being not allowed to talk to people, because, as I always say, there are two types of people in my life: total strangers or enemies. Humans are savages. I don't deal well with savages. I'm not allowed to kiss ass. I'm not allowed to tell people what they want to hear. So I would never talk to people. I would go to all their shows. I would never talk to them, never say hi, etc., 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 which is ironic because a lot of people think I'm verbose. A lot of people think I'm really aggressive. I'm only aggressive when I need to be. So I said to Johnny and Missy O'Reilly, these two teens stuck in dead-end lives in Brooklyn, New York, with no hope, no future, no direction. I said, hey, you guys should come see this new group called the Upright Citizens Brigade. You like Janine and all them. Come see this group. Well, being narrow-minded rednecks provincial, towny, narrow-minded rednecks, they didn't take my advice. Like I said, come see these guys do a play. They do a couple plays. And like, what's a play? I said, oh, it's like the TV shows you watch, except the actors are in the same room with you. It took me, I think, about 2 years to finally talk them into coming to see the Upright Citizens Brigade. Now, this is another stellar example of what my life is like. I have tens of thousands of stories just like this, where people didn't listen to me, they didn't listen to me, and then they finally did listen to me, and the results were astounding. Johnny and Missy not only loved the Upright Citizens Brigade, Missy started dating Matt Walsh, and Johnny moved in with Matt Walsh. And Missy was on Saturday Night Live and met all kinds of wonderful people, and her life changed completely because she finally, after 2 years, listened to me drag her to see the Upright Citizens Brigade. And that's happened in almost every situation in my life. People always, in the end, say, shit, you were right. Fuck, I should have listened to you sooner. You think? But before, I think, she started dating Matt Walsh, and I think even before they started going to see the Upright Citizens Brigade with me, I, being the most wonderful human being of all time and always caring about others at the expense of my own life, that's why I have the worst life of anybody on earth. If I cared more about myself and fucked over others, I'd be in better shape. But I'm selfless. And what happens to nice guys? Thank you. And what happens to the nicest guy? That's right, he must finish lastest. And you might have heard that no good deed goes unpunished. Well, I'm the king of that proverb, as you'll see. I had a great job at the time, a really fucking awesome job. I used to deliver food, and people think, oh, you're brilliant. Why are you delivering food? Isn't that beneath you? It's like, what are you fucking talking about? I work 4 hours a day, and I pick as many shifts or as few shifts as I want. I work 4 hours a day. I get free meals that are fucking delicious. I get paid to ride a bike around a neighborhood and see people's apartments and shit. And I'm making $5 an hour flat rate, while the waitresses and bartenders are making $2.10. And I get to keep all my tips. I was making fucking $50 an hour to work 4 hours, to eat great food, and to wander around the neighborhood. Holy fuck. The job was great. And it's a job a moron could do. But the customers loved me. All my customers would always rave about me. Because I'm the best. My philosophy is, don't do something. If you're not going to do it better than everybody else, don't fucking do it. Spare us, please. Stop being so fucking selfish. I don't play guitar because I got nothing better to do. I play guitar because nobody is fucking taking guitar into the future. I don't play drums because I want to play drums. I play drums because nobody's taking drums into the fucking future. Ditto everything else. The architects out there are fucking morons. The political thinkers out there are fucking morons. Everyone out there is a fucking moron because it's human nature to be fucking lazy and to not use your fucking heads. And, oh shit, how long is this? Fuck. I'm digressing. Apologies. So anyhow, I, being a wonderful guy, said I was still trying to take this Johnny O'Reilly under my wing. And I said, Johnny, you got a job, a fucking dead-end job in a fucking factory doing pallets. You hate your job. You hate your life. He wanted to be a rock star. Don't give a shit about that. But I said, I can help you. Let me get you a job at the restaurant I work at, Live Bait on 23rd Street and Madison Avenue. Delicious food, great environment, semi-cool boss, semi-prick. And a job that even a moron could do. And Johnny was kind of a moron. And I got him a wonderful job where he started making great money to do very little work. Actually, he was so lazy, I ended up doing most of the work while he fucking relaxed because he thought he should be a rock star and serving food and things was beneath him. I've never had that attitude. It's one of the things that makes me easily the greatest human being of all time.